Is it okay? I'm sitting like such chilling. Bajaao was basically an idea I had. One second. Sorry. Where do I look in this? Like, do I look there or this should not come. I went to Ladakh in 2005 and I spent a month there. And when I came back, I thought I need to quit my job and do something myself. I figured it was the right time, the right age to do something on my own because even if I fucked it up, I could still get back to a normal life. And so I started Bajaao. I was always into music, always into gear, and I knew the gear scene in India was pretty bad. Like me, myself as a guitarist, I had to get my own guitar from the States so many years ago. So I decided to start selling online, and that's how Bajaao came about. I was a techie, so I made the site on my own, and I did the backend on my own, and I started from scratch. And yeah, it's been 2.5 years, and it's just, yeah, it's going strong. Yeah.
What about NOC?
Yeah, NOC is something I was talking about for like 8 years with all the other bands in the scene. Like there was Scepter, there was Naked Earth, there was a band called Nemesis, and none of us had a place to jam back then. And we used to have horrible jams, like with like a 10-watt amp in one corner of the room, and like another amp from where the radio used to come out, like instead of the guitar sound. We used to pick up the radio signals. So we've done some crazy things, and we always had this idea about renting a room or renting a house where everyone could put their gear and jam, but it never worked out. So somewhere after a year of Bajao, I thought I wanted to try that out. So I picked up this place, and like half of it's my office on top, and this is the jam room, and yeah, it's going strong as well. So it's always been a crazy scene. I mean, I've seen bands come up, bands go out. We do have the best musicians in India, a lot of dedicated people. Not all of them are into rock or metal. A lot of them are into the commercial side, but yeah, it's good. Uh, we provide gear to metalheads, and we sell the kind of gear that metal bands use. Like we don't sell flutes and sitars and like tablas. Like we sell axes. We sell kits you can pound, right? And if you sell a keyboard, it's a dark keyboard. Yeah, only black. Yeah, no, we've in general we've done our bit to educate metalheads, people looking to get into rock. A lot of people who buy from us are people who are just starting out on becoming rock musicians, and we try to help them. And I think NOC is a decent enough thing to do for the scene. I'm so happy it's still running, and it uh, it just makes me feel proud, yeah, to have something like this and not fuck it up.
So how was the initial response to NOC when it started off?
It was cool. Like I've never bothered to like advertise, or it just spread by word of mouth, and the bands kept coming in. And it's good that the newer bands come in more because most of the established bands do have a place to jam. So this is always about the people who didn't have any place to jam, and yeah, those are the kind of bands who've come here. I mean, bands have been born over here. Spike Crip was born here, Black was born here, and even Rosemary and all, they had one of the first jams here. I'm really kicked about that. A lot of bands. Kindergarten, yeah. So I've seen bands growing from like a really horrible stage to becoming really good. That's arson also, yeah. And bands have like ended here as well. I get to hear all the fights on top.
Like any examples of those?
I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't want to say. We do sell a few CDs on our site. In terms of supporting gigs, I would love to do that at some point. Right now, we do give gear for gigs, usually on hire. We haven't reached a stage where I can actually afford to sponsor a gig. But the day that happens, I'll be sponsoring every gig in the city. The day I can keep aside, one kit, a few amplifiers, a PA system aside. I'll do it. That's maybe 2 years down the line.
On the president button. What do you think is the growth potential of this underground rock slash metal industry that's coming up? There's so many metal bands coming up. What do you think is the future or the potential for these bands?
That depends on what you mean by coming up, because I've seen underground bands back in 95, 96 when I was a kid. There were still bands like Fate, Morticide around in the scene, and they launched an album. They pretty much came up in the small scene, but nothing really happened to them. So I mean, what do you define by coming up?
See, coming up as in, like, for example, demonic resurrection, banana mod, how these guys have reached the level of popular this thing.
Bhayanak Moths has reached a level of poverty,
Oh, are they?
and no, basically,
Basically, what I'm trying to say is, I mean, coming up as in enough number of people know about this band to generate that, how should I say, the publicity and the hype. You know, the moment you see Bhayanak Moth is playing this game, you know, a dedicated number of followers, fans will be there for the concert.
absolutely, I'm really happy that bands have now got mass appeal. Like, yeah, say a Fate who had a strong following in Bombay. They didn't have any following outside Mumbai. I know that for a fact. And yeah, I do know because I get orders from Assam wherein they request an autograph of Bhayanak Moth on the guitar, just because they know that the band comes and jams here. So they have a crazy following, and bands like Demonic, of course, they aren't underground. I mean, they're discussed in every chat room in Bombay, even the sex chats. So, the, but we'll keep that aside.
Right. So, basically, now let me know that since we seem to have established that there's some amount of potential in these bands to come out and get popular, take out an album. So, I mean, how does Bajaao help you? As in, since you guys have a record video coming up, do you provide special rates to upcoming bands? Or what's the way?
We do have low rates and all, and I've just recently hooked up with Viru to come and doing some sound engineering at night for the bands, because earlier I was doing it, but then I was too busy with work, so it wasn't really working out. And I think the most important thing is now it's not too hard to record an album, because everyone can do a good quality production in their house as well. The thing is to sell the album for a profit and to sustain it. And I'm not sure how many of the bands have done that yet. I've seen some good albums from Cryptos. It's quite good. I've heard Bhayanak Moth, yeah. Okay, production was bad, but good effort. DR was decent. Who else? Okay, I haven't heard Exhumation, but I'm looking forward to Scribe coming out. The thing is, here the bands they take an album out and then they think the duty's done. They can go home, get laid. I'm happy. Okay, 2 साल तक कुछ करने का नहीं है अभी. That's the basic attitude. And what they should do is the day the album comes out, they should be working on the next album.
Yeah.
That is the only way to come up internationally or even in here, like in India. The minute you have like 4 5 albums under your belt in 6 years, it shows you're serious. Even a foreign label will pick you up if the music is good. Like one album out of the blue can come out from anywhere. It doesn't mean anything. You could have like got 10 years of material, your life's work into one album. That doesn't mean you have potential. So I'd say, any serious band should have, who's been around for 10 years, should have 6 to 7 albums at least. And that's going to actually grow the scene, in metal especially.
Anything else you want to say to us?
If you're a metalhead, if you're a true metalhead, you need to pick your gear up from Bajaao. Because we sell evil stuff. Nobody's up. ahead. It's basically the how I would define it from what I've been through is
Please don't be diplomatic.
no, I'll have to be a little diplomatic. But there's usually in any typical scene there are usually 8 or 9 guys from different bands who are really aggressive about getting laid at every given opportunity, and you keep running into each other because you're all after the same 4 chicks in the rock scene. Like, I mean, the 4 chicks who actually sleep with like people in bands, and it's hard to find a hot chick and get laid. You have to compromise somewhere. Like, if you can be friends with a hot chick, or you can get laid with an ugly chick. So yeah, I think a lot of us have done a lot of stuff, but I think the scene needs to grow there as well. Like, it does.
It does.
The hot chicks are the ones who come with their boyfriends and then they go home with their boyfriends at gigs, and the girls hang out with the bands. If they're ugly, they go home with the band. If they're good looking, they go home alone or with their dads. That happened once. So, and the dad thought I was a girl because I had like really long hair that time. That's why she didn't get canned. I could name the people who were active like 4 to 5 years back, which is when I used to gig regularly, but I won't. But I'm sure if they're watching this, they know. And they're all pretty prominent people right now in the scene. I think we'll be interviewing them at some point.
See, apart from getting laid with, in terms of metal, their knowledge and
Oh my god, that just sounded so sexist. What I just said. I see a lot more women in the scene forming bands, and there are a couple of goth, black metal, doom metal bands coming and playing here with girls singing. But generally, in terms of playing, I haven't seen too many serious all-girl bands or a lot of women making a noticeable contribution to the metal scene in India yet. So
what about Mumbai specifically?
I'm sure there are a lot. They're probably too underground for me to know about. I've got a little more commercial last few years. If there are, you can always like give me their email IDs or
Good luck there, man.
scene needs to grow.
So, say, what was the biggest problem you think that's plaguing the scene right
Biggest problem in metal is that it's the same problem that was around even before I was born, and that was that bands don't stay together, and sometimes the right people are not playing in the right bands. I see that all the time. Like, you'll see a band with 3 excellent people and one guy who may not be committed or may not be musically on the same level, and that can really screw up a band. It An even more common situation is, one guy in the band who's carrying the band and the rest of them are at a certain level. That kind of mismatch never works. And the other thing is, of course, the lack of commitment, lack of resources. Uh, we need to get more people focused on making a career in music. Like, if 4 people are doing nothing but music, that band is bound to be successful. I'm talking about bands like Thermal and a Quarter, or a couple of bands in the Northeast. Rudy Walang, he plays with a lot of good musicians. They're pretty dedicated. I think there are bands in Calcutta who've been playing for like 20, 30 years, doing well. But there was a band called Mojo back from the Northeast with Rudy. They were pretty good. I think bands need to stay together. They need to be equally committed. Like, every member in the band has to be equally committed towards the music, and that's when the band can grow, and that's when you can lift yourself up in the scene.
now? Another thing I would also
I would love to provide a solution because at some time in my life, I would love to get into entertainment and events. It's a natural extension of what we do in Bajaao. But I'd say for Bombay specifically, it is very difficult to do a gig. because there are these big event companies who do gigs. They face a lot of problems getting permissions from the police. A couple of them have offered like to give us a contract to get them the permissions for each gig. So that means it is really tough, you know, if they're calling someone like me who doesn't know jack about it. And so I think practically it is very difficult because there's some high entertainment taxes. The police have sort of become a little more conservative due to certain political parties, and they insist on a lot of paperwork, licenses, a lot of bribing happening. You could have gigs. I mean, I'm sure there are possibilities. You might be able to do a road show, or you need to find a pub that's really underground. Like look at a place like Blue Frog. They will never have problem with the cops. It's all inside, and there's no leakage of sound. That's the main thing. And for underground gigs, the only thing important is that no one should find out, like especially the cops. After that, it's a success. So we need to find venues where which are like well constructed, slightly not on out of the slightly isolated, but industrial estates, things like that. Unconventional venues, and they could work. So I was talking to Rohit from PDV. We were trying to look for a place in Andheri, and let's see, we're still searching. We found a place, but it's got no ventilation, so you might die like if you come. But otherwise, it's great. Yeah. That is definitely changing because as part of Bajaao, I sell all over India to people, and a lot of people who buy from me are kids. And more often than not, today it's the parents who are forcing the kids into music. Maybe they think it's probably a hobby, but then they're doing that first step. Like my parents didn't buy me my guitar; I bought it myself. But now it's the parents who are. It's the schools firstly who are encouraging music. A lot of schools have bands, active bands happening, and all over India, not just in Bombay. And I think the parent mindset is changing towards music. And naturally, I mean, there's a chance that your kid will go into metal. So they don't know that, but it might happen. And I think they'll support it to some extent. No, I see. Nowhere in the world you won't. It's very rare to find, unless you're a love child conceived at Woodstock. It's very rare to find a couple of parents who will really push you towards a metal band and devoting your life to metal or rock. So you have to be a rebel. You have to do it on your own. That's never going to change. But you might get more support practically from your parents in terms of gear, things like that. I played on a Gibson for like 5 years, and I always blamed it for the mistakes that I made. And yeah, then I had to like start working and then pick up a good guitar. That's the way it happened.
So another interesting thing about is about IROC. Basically, have you noticed the list of the bands inside IROC?
Yeah, I saw the list.
Yeah. Notice it is pretty much a lack of metal bands.
There are no metal bands on the list.
Yeah, pretty much. So basically, we heard the reason for that being that this time the elements are happening at Hard Rock Cafe and Rangi Pani. Yeah, either one of those. So basically, it seems the management has said that they don't want any loud noise. Basically, no metal.
That's very likely. That's really likely. Yeah.
So it's like, do you think it's justifiable for IROC to compromise, music, at least for, IROC has been a place for upcoming bands, at least stepping up stage. So do you think it's good for IROC to compromise in such a way, just for a venue?
I think they compromised a long time back because there have been controversies and problems from the time they had the first competition for bands, which was in 2001, I think, or 2002, when they got the entire competing band thing. It was a good thing because it did let a lot of more bands come to IROC and play towards that whole audience. But the selection's always been a problem. There have been crazily talented bands from the rest of India. It used to be only in Bombay at that time, but they had entries from all over India. And miraculously, like a lot of good bands never got through. And So yeah, they've compromised on a lot of things. I mean, the sound has been really pathetic the last 2 years that I've been there. The bands are okay, but then some bands have those wildcard entries. They're resurrected only for iRock. And that's a pun, resurrected. There's one resurrected band actually had to hire people to play with them once at iRock. It was resurrected. I don't know what that. Does that sound like any band? I don't know. So they were dead, but they played iRock. And but yeah, it's already compromised. In fact, next year I'm gonna try and do iRock on 15th August. It'll be independent dance rock like DNC. Put throw in a couple of like uh, DJs also as well. Yeah. No, but yeah, I would love someone to come and do something on 15th August. I mean, I hate the fact that it's been pushed down a month for no reason. For no reason. I mean, it doesn't make sense. 15th August was the day when you got into a local train and went to Rangbhavan. It's people want to go for a gig on 15th August, and that gig should be IROC. So it's like a totally corporate event. You get sponsorship of 90 lakhs from Nokia. That says metal is out, right? You can't have metal with corporates. It doesn't match. Who's doing it? Airtel. Airtel is as big as Nokia. Yeah. I don't think they really. Do they have metal in Airtel ads? There was not really.
Yet,
What do you want to say about that? That is like um, attitudes of people who are into metal, who are into different types of metal, different types of rock. Their attitude towards people in different types of music has always been fun to behold, and it's always been fun to take part in. Like so let that be what it is. I have no opinion. I actually don't have any opinion. Pass. I like jazz. Not that dumb. I'm from Xavier's. Father eating metal or hating metal?
father considering the electric guitar to be the
I don't think there are any fathers there in Xavier's who would be so extreme. But if they are, they're just saying that to the parents of the students to make them feel happier. But uh, I believe in Ravanic metal and not satanic metal because I don't know who Satan is specifically. But I know who Ravan is, and he's a pretty cool guy. I mean, he's got 10 heads. He can headbang with 10 heads. And uh, he can fly, he can do all kinds of things. He can do air guitar, like because he plays in the air. And so I think once you get Ravanic metal into the picture, it all becomes a little comic because um, we're one of the few cultures who never really had an evil figure. Generally, broadly speaking, a lot of Asian cultures don't have a supreme evil figure. So then I don't think you can have supremely evil music as well. That's my personal feeling. That's cool. It's all part of the image. It's cool. You do what you believe in, and that's cool with me. always. You don't put anyone down. That's it. If you're cool with what you're doing, that's good. You should believe in it. You shouldn't be in it just for the image.
Cool, thanks, man. Cool, thanks for this. What about your favorite band?
That's a tough question because all of them like play here, and it's hard for me to. All right, some of the bands I like. Um, I like Junkyard Groove from what little I've seen of them. Nothing exceptional about the band, but I like the fact that they're cool on stage, and to some extent I like the music as well. I love the attitude. Um, I like Scribe a lot. Um, in metal, I like Exhumation. These are all bands who are like very precise and like clinically perfect. They drive themselves to perform well on stage, and they do that really good. Yeah, they don't fuck up basically. They are they practice with a vengeance. Yeah, those kind of bands. I always like them. I like Bionic Moth also to some extent. Uh, Devoid is a decent band. I've just heard them in a couple of competitions, so I can't really comment. But yeah, I don't know if it exists. Brute Force is okay. I mean, they're a Pune metal band, so that's all I'll say. They're good. They're good. No, I haven't heard them yet. I will. I'll try. Brute Force is really good. They got a powerful act, but I don't like their songs. Their songs. The word OC is used only in India. It's either your song or someone else's song, right? So you call it a song.
So, what do you think about the originality of bands?
Most bands compose before they mature, so then it takes a hit. From the bands who've been around for a while, you get a little more maturity coming in. The first album is usually something to laugh at, always, and so yeah, it's all a factor of how long you've been playing, how good you are musically, and how mature you are as a band. So bands who found that equation are doing well. I like the songs coming out. With other bands, it's usually like one good song on the entire album, but sometimes even that's worth it. So